Oh, thanks. Thanks, buddy. Thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I Don't Want to Write a Script Right Now, where today we're going to be going over a couple of TWABs that have come out recently, past couple of weeks, as there are some things in here that I do think people should actually know. So we're just going to riff over them. No script, no nothing. You don't have to actually watch. You can just listen along if you want to go, do something else or throw me up in another tab. And as you slowly zone out into something else that you're paying attention to, and I just become white noise. First things first, Deep Stone Crafting. We have Deep Stone Crypt Weapon Crafting coming in Season 19. You're going to be able to craft these weapons. And during the weeks where it is the featured raid of the week, you can farm the raid as many times as you want. Deep Stone actually one of the faster raids, I imagine, to farm, because Taniks you can one cycle, Atrax you can one cycle, Security you can one cycle. So pretty quick runs. You're not going to be able to save any old red border weapons that you might have stored in hopes of progressing your patterns. Anything that you earn has to be Season 19 and after to progress the patterns. At first, when I heard this news, I was like, the shotgun's good, the sniper's good, the machine gun's good, everything else I'm kind of eh. So what are you going to do to get me to craft these weapons and care about getting these weapons? Well, Bungie is updating some perk combinations. As we can see here, Trustee, which I wanted to be good, but it just really wasn't when it first came out, can get something like Rapid Hit Incandescent. That's going to be very interesting for a lot of players. Posterity, 180 RPM Arc Hand Cannon. Didn't really get much use. Perk set was not really that great. Now you can get Volt Shot and Rampage. I think the only reason I would end up using Posterity is specifically for Volt Shot. I don't really like 180 RPM hand cannons, but Volt Shot is just an incredible perk. So yeah, there's going to be some improved perk combinations on these weapons, which hopefully should be a big incentive to start farming Deep Stone Crypt. And I actually like this because it gives a little bit of life to Deep Stone Crypt. No one needs to run Deep Stone Crypt anymore. So, it'll be nice to go back and give this place a little bit of life again. At least until everyone gets all the patterns and then they stop farming it again. But that's totally okay. So there's going to be a new origin trait as well. So your old weapons are not going to have that perk. Depends completely on what this ends up being. Whether or not you need to go farm another one, we'll see. But speaking of weapon crafting, Bungie has heard the cries of the public and the cries of the community on weapon crafting in general. And so let's talk about some of the pain points that they are bringing up. Deep sight weapons are far too common, which leads to some confusion over their value and vault stress. To a new player, it can be difficult to understand which weapons are actually craftable. That is totally understandable. To an experienced player, deep sight weapons commonly end up in the vault for future currency, bringing more stress to vault or inventory management. I've said my piece on weapon crafting at this point. I think it's not something that people should be going crazy about, but I digress. Let's just kind of keep going with this. Deep sight weapons must be equipped for full currency extraction, causing friction with loadouts. Ever since they brought the kills down required to 40 to complete a deep sight weapon to get maximum materials, I personally don't think this is that big of a deal. 40 kills on a primary weapon takes, a couple of minutes. I don't think it's really that big of a deal, but people still really don't like it. So it seems like they want people to try new weapons for other reasons, not just crafting materials, which is totally understandable. Farming an encounter like Shirochi is a very efficient method for leveling. It's also incredibly boring. Yeah, it is tedious and provides no useful benefits to the player or the encounter. You're literally just, it's the fastest way to farm a bunch of enemies really quickly. So yeah, there are no methods for increasing a weapon's level outside of equipping it, which in theory that makes sense. You need to use the weapon to level it up. That makes sense, but I feel like they can maybe make the crafting experience or the leveling experience on a crafted weapon maybe go a little bit faster. I think that's what they might end up doing. Crafted base raid weapons outclassed adept raid weapons. I think they said something on this very recently where they are trying to do some changes. So here's some things that they want to do with Lightfall. not Season 19. This is going to be Lightfall. Goal, reduce deep sight weapon hoarding. So they want to introduce more ways to get deep sight currency. Totally fine. Reduce bad luck in weapon recipe unlocking. Yes, absolutely need this. It is devastating to finally get a red border weapon, but it's not of a weapon that you actually need versus something that you do need. It really sucks. This is why I usually don't rush to level or to get all the patterns of one weapon specifically, unless it's a weapon that I know I really want to craft. I'd rather level them all at the same time, because if I do end up getting a dupe, it won't be a dupe. It'll be one that I actually need. So leveling them all together to reduce my chance of getting something that I don't need. Reduce loadout stress, reduce player incentives to equip a suboptimal deep sight or crafted weapon. Most crafted weapons are pretty suboptimal when you craft them like right at level 1. There's only a small handful of weapons that I think are what I would consider usable at level 1. Even though, like, let's be real, any sort of regular weapon is going to be more than fine in most pieces of mid to low end content. Doesn't really matter that much, but it still kind of feels bad going from like explosive payload frenzy to like ensemble opening shot. You know what I mean? Something like that just doesn't feel very good. And improve the value of weapon rewards from master raid content. So yeah, they're going to give Lightfall raid adept weapons access to enhanced perks, but it's not going to be full freeform crafting. This was mentioned quite a while ago on the 6th. I don't think I covered this, but this was just like a bajillion. Oh, because this was when I was at TwitchCon. Yeah, other people have made videos about this. But that was just basically just like a giant Q&A that Bungie did about weapons and stuff. Starting in Lightfall, this is a change I think is very good. Starting in Lightfall, weapons that cannot be crafted will no longer drop with deep sight. This will help us achieve our goal of reducing deep sight weapon hoarding and should help alleviate some stress on your vaults. Players who currently have these weapons in their inventory should complete their objectives to avoid the loss of resonant elements. This kind of goes into stuff with the new player. It's difficult to understand which weapons are actually craftable, because I feel like the assumption is if you get a red border of something, it potentially means that it's craftable. But by reducing the amount of weapons that will drop with deep sight on them, I feel like they're likely either going to do one of the following. Number one, increase the amount of currency you get from completing a deep sight weapon, or two, provide resources in other places, ways to earn alloy in other places. So yeah, that's about it for the weapon crafting stuff. Again, I've said my piece on weapon crafting. I personally don't prioritize it that aggressively. I am not trying to craft every single weapon and get them to level 20. I think it should be a supplementary thing to your experience, not the main thing that you're focusing on. But you know, clearly I am in the minority on that, and Bungie's making some changes that I think everybody's gonna like. I certainly don't mind that they're making these changes at all, because I am pretty indifferent to the whole experience. So you know, if more people are gonna be happy with some of these changes, bring them on. Good stuff. I think the rest of this TWAB was just like, yeah, some Stadia stuff. You probably already know that Stadia is shutting down if you're a Stadia gamer. Yeah, you should set all this up to make sure that you don't lose your stuff. And I think the rest of this was just kind of Bungie bounties and Prime Gaming, patch node updates, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the next one, the next TWAB, has a lot of ability updates. So all of the 3.0 subclasses are finally out. And Bungie just basically is talking about, you know, how they mentioned before these updates, they wanted to get PvP to a spot where it was 60-40 gunplay / abilities. So 60% of the time, or 60% of the impact is guns, and then 40% is abilities. And that plan felt like it went completely out the door with Subclass 3.0, because it is ability insanity pretty much everywhere in the entire game. This does seem to be focused a bit more on PvP woes rather than PvE, but there are some PvE changes coming. You can kind of read more here. This is just sort of some preamble, but let's just get to the major changes. That's what you guys want to know. So let's talk about the subclass changes coming in. With Solar 3.0, one of our goals was to get persistent healing in a place where it felt valuable in high-level PvE. However, with the updates to Resilience that released alongside it, Restoration has proved to be too powerful for our current suite of activities and has been a pain point in high-level PvP. We're making a small adjustment to Restoration X1 and a larger to Restoration X2 to make sure that a careless player can still be punished by an opposing Guardian or particularly crafty PvE combatants. So Restoration 1 base healing is getting reduced from 25 to 20 health per second. 40 health per second in PvE down from 50. Restoration X2 is going from 40 to 32.5 in PvP, 65 down from 80 in PvE. No longer stacks with healing rifts. Healing the stronger heal over time is going to be prioritized and stop the weaker heal over time from taking effect. This doesn't surprise me really that much at all. In the majority of content, Restoration is just insanely good, and as people have spoken about, Solar Titans, Lorelei is just absolutely nuts. You're almost immortal in most pieces of content. Like, the only way you're dying is if you're just getting incredibly focused fired, especially with the resilience changes. So this does not surprise me that much whatsoever. I don't think this should be much of a surprise. Let's talk about Radiant. We're content with the potency of Radiant and its place in the sandbox, but in its current state, its uptime has no meaningful drawbacks, so we're making a few changes to the Solar Fragment suite to reduce that uptime. Very easy to keep Radiant up almost all the time. Like Titan, of course, Hunter with like Calibans, like, yeah, very easy to keep it up. So Radiant base duration reduced from 10 seconds to 8 seconds with Ember of Torches, now applies a -10 discipline penalty while equipped. And Ember of Solace now provides a bonus 50% to Radiant duration rather than a flat 5 seconds. This is consistent with its behavior with Restoration. So yeah, Restoration getting a bit of a tweak. Radiant also getting a bit of a tweak. Not really surprising. Little to no drawbacks whatsoever. Yeah, this I don't think this should really be that surprising. So let's talk about Knock 'em Down. This aspect does a lot of work, most of it being passive in the background. While we're happy with its use as a neutral game tool to throw an absurd number of knives in a target-rich environment, its benefits to the gunslingers' supers are currently overloaded. The overlap in benefits between Deadshot and Marksman Golden Gun muddies their identities. The bonus duration on Deadshot resulted in a few too many 7th, 8th, and 14th column videos for our comfort. Yeah, definitely a minor pain point. Golden Gun Hunters just completely wrecking face, especially in stuff like Mayhem. Like, you just kill everything. It goes for so long. Not really the most surprising there. We want to cement Deadshot Golden Gun as a tool for Hunter that wants to dive into the fray, whereas Marksman is for column or sharpshooters that want to wait for the perfect shot. We're splitting Knock 'em Down's benefits more cleanly across the two variants. Deadshot will gain 15% damage resistance, but lose its bonus duration, and Marksman will no longer provide bonus damage resistance while Knock 'em Down is equipped. While it's been refreshing to see Blade Barrage topping the PvE DPS charts, its base damage increase that it received in combination with Knock 'em Down's bonus knives pushed it too far above where Bungie is comfortable for a burst damage super. It does deal pretty high damage. I didn't think it was like super problematic, but it was definitely very high level. So they're bringing the bonus blades down from 5 to 3. Not terribly devastating. I think Blade Barrage is still going to absolutely be in that upper tier, which is good because, you know, solar well generation is very important for a lot of endgame raiders. A lot of people using Cataclysmic as their raid DPS weapon, so you want to stay on solar. Blade Barrage is still going to be pretty good, so I'm not terribly concerned about the effectiveness of Blade Barrage. Otherwise, yeah, the bonus duration going away on Deadshot is it feels like a little bit of a killer for PvE as well, but I personally don't use it. I'm more of a marksman kind of guy. Although lately I've been using Blade Barrage just for the bonus damage on a boss. So yeah, the PvPers who are very annoyed at Golden Gun are going to be very happy. Hunter's probably not too stoked about that. But again, not an unreasonable change. I think we'll see how it plays out in Season 19, how much people are missing that bonus duration. and how much of an impact that it has. But as someone who is frequently getting golden gunned in PvP, personally, I'm not the most sad. Let's move to Celestial Fire. Increased close range melee damage from 90 to 100. Players using Celestial Fire and the auto melee option are no longer disadvantaged in close range melee fights. I think the notes here were basically saying you would use Celestial Fire and then a melee, and that wouldn't be enough to kill somebody. So they're just tweaking that so that that doesn't really happen anymore, which is totally fine. Void. Void Hunters, alas. We'll talk about that later. Void, I think, has actually been in a pretty good spot. I think probably more balanced than Solar and Arc, at least Titan-wise, because Arc Titans are currently insane, whereas Arc Warlocks are, not as much. The survivability benefit of Void Overshields didn't quite land where we intended due to a bug. We're fixing that bug in Season 19, which should increase the Overshield's viability as a protection tool in high-level PvE. Fixed an issue where the Overshield was only providing a 25% PvE-only damage resistance to the Overshield rather than intended 50%. That's pretty nice. Really hoping to maybe break out my Void Titan a little bit more. I know its destructive power isn't nearly as high as Arc Titan, and its survivability isn't as insane as Solar Titan is, but I still think Void is very, very strong as a utility subclass. We just did that collective obligation video where basically you can permanently have crazy weapon damage and all of your utility and overshields. Like, I think Void's in mostly a good spot PvE-wise. For Titans, I guess Warlocks. Hunters I haven't done too much, but we'll get to that. Voidwalker is also in a place where we're pretty comfortable across all modes, but Vortex Nova Bomb doesn't feel like it provides a meaningful enough benefit with its pull effect to making it a compelling choice over Cataclysm variant. I don't really know many people who are using Vortex Nova Bomb. It definitely feels weaker, and I think a lot of people are using Cataclysm for that high single target damage because, supers, roaming supers anyway, which Vortex Nova Bomb kind of feels like. It feels like ad clear versus pure like single target DPS, which Cataclysm does feel like. Vortex Nova Bomb, just kind of feels like an ad clear. And if there's one thing that basically every class is incredibly good at, it's ad clear. And we don't really need ad clear supers in the game right now. Everyone's using single target. But a lot of this is going based on its utility. So Nova Bomb Vortex increase initial projectile speed by 21%, the radius of the inward pull on impact by 17%, and the strength of the inward pull by 20%. So they really want to increase the utility of Vortex Nova Bomb and really bring in or increase the suck factor, essentially, to make it a bit better, which, I think that's also fine. I haven't done any testing on whether or not, like, which damage is better. So just not having that information, I wouldn't have minded a slight damage increase on Vortex Nova Bomb either. But I don't have any, like, numbers in front of me. We're just off the cuff right now. I think at the moment, sorry, let me just check audio. I think we're good. We're still good. Sorry, my mic's been giving me issues. I'm totally okay with this. I don't know anyone who's going to be upset about Vortex Nova Bomb getting better suck potential. Sentinel Titans, Shield Bash, improved reliability of applying suppression. Okay, I was going to say this feels like more of a PvP thing. PvE, like, not really that problematic. Even the limited times in PvP I've used it. My issue with shoulder charge is not necessarily, the application of suppression, but more of the time just, like, actually hitting your target. There's plenty of times where you just kind of, like, you stop short or you kind of, like, go off to the side, something like that. But hey, if we're getting improved reliability for getting suppression, cool. That feels kind of more like almost like even like a bug fix rather than a buff. But okay. All right, Hunters. Made significant changes to both Shadow Shot super variants. Deadfall received a larger pull on impact. Mobius Quiver was reworked completely. Pretty happy with Mobius Quiver's hybrid burst/debuff roll, but it's currently too good on one side of that roll. Its damage is very strong, absolutely. We want to push Mobius Quiver further away from Deadfall's role as the long duration debuff tool by reducing its tether lifetime while simultaneously increasing the tether lifetime of Deadfall Shadow Shot. So they just are trying to separate it a little bit more. Deadfall's radius, I believe, is a bit bigger. But, you know, as with the upcoming Divinity changes, I think a lot of people are going to be switching over to Deadfall to provide extra duration on that weaken effect. Yeah, I mean, they literally say it right here. So Deadfall is going from 8 to 12 seconds, and Mobius Quiver is going down from 8 to 6 seconds. So Quiver, if you want to use Quiver, you're still going to get that weaken effect, but it's not going to be nearly as long of a duration, whereas Deadfall, if you want that long-term duration benefit, that's what you're going to be using. Just a little bit of separation there, which I really don't mind at all. I think this is a very reasonable change to make, especially with the upcoming Divinity changes. Elephant in the room, Invis and PvP. I am barely playing PvP, and I know how brutal this is. Invisibility is currently a severe pain point in high-level PvP. No plans to announce today, but we're looking at a longer-term solution to address the difficulty encountering a full team of Invisible Night Stalkers. Falcon, Hawberk, I'm sure also somewhat of a problem in PvP, along with just stacking Invis Hunters. Yeah. It doesn't seem like they have a ton to talk about right now. They are still investigating a lot of things, but you know, when Invis was the way that it was, where it was just sort of like an infrequent thing that you could do, I think all the stuff with the radar was pretty fine. But now with how easy it is to go Invis and all that kind of stuff, I think some more radar things may be happening. Maybe some duration reductions may be happening as well. But yeah, so far Bungie, this paragraph right here is basically Bungie saying, yeah, we know everyone, we know, we're working on it, but this is not something that's just like a quick, like, you know, oh, we nerfed it from 5 seconds to 4 seconds. Like it's going to take a while. All right, moving to Arc. Relatively new, still monitoring the feedback and the data coming in. We've identified some obvious outliers that we'd like to address, which is the Touch of Thunder Storm Grenade build. Oh boy. Yeah, so this build is one of the best in the game. It is completely dominant in all aspects of PvE. It's pretty strong in PvP as well. I wouldn't say it's like the most ridiculous thing, but it's still very, very strong. And as I mentioned on Twitter, I think what they're doing with this is okay, but Bungie also announced a little while ago that that they are going to be doing a lot of adjustments to exotics coming up in the next patch. We don't know which ones yet. They said 26, 27 of them are getting some adjustments. So Heart of Inmost Light, maybe not off the hook yet, but as of right now, it is. We'll go into some of these changes. Our intention with this aspect was to lean hard into Striker as the Titan's grenade-centric class, echoing the code of the Earthshaker's role. Storm Grenade to be used to force bunkered players to move. In the Crucible, we're not even talking PvE right now. We're talking Crucible. These linger too long in the world and are difficult to read from the target's perspective. We're reducing the enhanced Storm Grenade's base lifetime as well as the benefit it receives from Spark of Magnitude. Also making changes to the friend or foe ring that travels to improve readability. So yeah, so they didn't even mention PvE in this, but I mean, it obviously also affects PvE, but they didn't even mention PvE. Decrease Touch of Thunder's Storm Grenade base roaming duration from 5 to 4 seconds, and the bonus lifetime going from 2 to 1.5 seconds. Not going to devastate the PvE situation. Your grenades are not going to last as long, but it seems like the damage is going to be unaffected. It's still going to be really, really strong single target for champions and stuff like that. So PvE wise, I'm not really too nervous, but we're still waiting to see if Bungie is going to make any changes to Heart of Inmost Light. So I'd say do hold your breath for the moment. We'll wait and see what that exotic armor update looks like. And I probably will have a video on that because everybody loves videos about exotics. But for now, it seems like it's somewhat safe. Seems like it's somewhat safe. And then they also are updating some visuals to make it easier to see versus just like a ring on the ground and you're just like, what do I die to? Ballistic Slam increased by 16% against PvE combatants. I'm totally fine with this. Everyone's using Thunder Punch right now, or Thunderclap, and Thunderclap is just incredibly fun. Ballistic Slam, you know, it's tough in PvE. There's a big windup. I don't really think there's as much of a payout. So more than happy to see a buff for this ability in PvE. No issues at all there. I'm still probably going to end up using Thunderclap anyway, because Ballistic Slam is just kind of unwieldy to use sometimes and takes a lot of finesse and accuracy, whereas Thunderclap is you punch, and it's a lot easier to do. Tempest Strike. Increased damage against PvE combatants by 30%. More than okay with this as well. I don't really know anybody who is using Tempest Strike. I have only been using Tempest Strike to get a Triumph done, and that is about it. I don't know really anybody who's using Tempest Strike over the other two aspects, especially with some of the ridiculous single target damage that Arc Hunters are capable of right now with Liar's Handshake, or even people using Assassin's Cowl. No one's using Tempest Strike, so yeah, more than happy to see a nice PvE buff. Still don't know if people are going to use it, but I'd rather have the buff than not. Stormcallers, though, a bit of a tougher spot. You know, you do have a couple of builds that I think are still good in mid and low end PvE, but in terms of end game content, those builds fall a bit flat. Not really that good. You're probably not taking it over Well of Radiance. And Child of the Old Gods, Bleak Watcher, Well of Radiance. All of these are incredibly good in high level PvE. I mean, even, you know, throwing on like a Verity's Brow for some grenade spam. I love Verity's Brow nowadays, especially with Collective Obligation. So Stormcaller a bit weak in PvE endgame. They increased base damage of Arc Soul from 25 to 35 back then, a couple months ago. And they anticipated a lot more people using Arc Soul, and also like Arc Soul being a lot better. Given the absolute destruction that we are capable of with basically every subclass in mid and low end PvE, I don't got time for Arc Soul to start shooting. All right, by the time Arc Soul starts shooting, my Storm Grenade has killed 50 things. Like, no one's got time for this. So they are dramatically buffing Arc Soul again from 35 to 60 base damage. So we've now gone from 25 to 60 in like 2 months, more than doubling its potency. I'm still a bit skeptical, if I'm being real. Still a bit skeptical on how strong this is going to be. Again, even just considering the fact that you can be just on Well of Radiance as a Warlock and let 2 other people just absolutely massacre everything. Our Arc Soul is just inherently slow. It's a slow burn, and there's not really a such thing anymore in Destiny as a slow burn. Everything is just, you're dead. Instant death, everything's dead. And that's really the big problem with Arc Soul. So I'm excited to see it, but I am a bit skeptical if this is really going to do anything for endgame, at least over what Warlocks are capable of doing on other subclasses. Also making some updates to Stormcaller's melee abilities. Lightning Surge is just absolutely insane. It's not only that, it's incredibly fun to use. PvP, you know, people are going around one-shotting with like a wave frame grenade launcher and Lightning Surge combo. But yeah, Lightning Surge is just so strong. No one else is using the other melees. So they're buffing them. Ball Lightning, travel range increased about 8 meters. And Chain Lightning increased PvE damage by 50%. Love to see that. Again, we'll see if anything happens there. But Lightning Surge, I think a lot of it's just the fun factor. Just the fun factor of Lightning Surge. Chaos Reach, they are reducing the base cooldown time from 9:16 to 7:35, so you're gonna be able to use it a bit more often. Chaos Reach, yeah, I mean, I'd say all Stormcaller supers like have really not been that great. Like Stormtrance is a PvE ad clear type super. We don't need ad clear supers in the game right now. So I would say it's more of a PvP thing nowadays than PvE. It's just kind of weak, especially in endgame. And Chaos Reach, while it's a bit better, it still feels like it has underwhelming performance. It doesn't feel the most strong. And yeah, last year they made the change to GMX stabilizers because of PvP. There were just chaos reaches everywhere, and with the hit detection issues, people getting killed behind walls and stuff, Bungie's like, all right, Geomags is contributing to this problem, so let's take a step back. So yeah, things have changed up, so they are trying to make chaos reach a bit better. So at the moment, I'm okay with that, especially from a PvE perspective, where Arc Warlocks are just like, you know, they're fine in mid to low, but endgame they're Stasis. I actually think Stasis is still like in like a pretty decent spot. I don't really know about Hunters that much, but like the Titan build that I made months ago on the channel, I think is still really good. The Bleak Watcher build is still really good on Warlocks. It's just Light 3.0 subclasses are so ridiculously strong now that Stasis really has not as much of a place, because Stasis is all about crowd control and freezing and slowing, and all the other subclasses are about instantaneous murder. So let's see what they did with Stasis. First targeted changes to the slow status effect. In its initial form, it did too much and penalized too many facets of players' performance, but we're not happy with its current form, which just feels like a stepping stone to freezing your target. Yeah, I mean, people are slowing targets so that they can apply freeze to them. That's basically all they're doing. So they are increasing the movement speed penalty while slowed by 10% to hopefully get some more urgency for people who are slowed to maybe get out of that dust field grenade or something like that. Cold Snap has been falling under our reliability target for some time now. While things like Osmiomancy help solve that problem, Cold Snap fails to find even slow-moving targets often enough that we felt like a change is necessary. We'll be watching this closely to make sure its potency in PvP doesn't creep back up our target. So the Seeker can now adjust its trajectory for a half a second after creation, rather than immediately finding a target and then going towards their last known position. So just, yeah, some usability improvements for Cold Snap. It's still not fun getting frozen in PvP, and again, I'm not the most in tune with the Cold Snap PvP meta at the moment, but off the top of my head, okay, feel free to be like, wow, what an awful take, but okay. I mean, I think most people are using Cold Snap on Warlocks for Osmiomancy, so alright. Dustfield doesn't punish players in its AoE who fail to relocate quickly enough, increasing the rate at which Dustfield... Oh, yeah, so this is basically what I was just talking about with the slow effect. Increased slow stack up application rate on players by 13%. Yeah, just basically what I was talking about. Dustfield, like, as long as you're relatively quick to get out of it, like, it's never really a big deal, and it also really never feels super threatening. Now it's going to feel a little more threatening. Stasis has also had a significant number of single fragment slot aspects, particularly on the Revenant Hunter. We took this opportunity to review the single slot Stasis aspects across Revenant Hunter and Behemoth Titan, and found a couple of them didn't make sense in the current sandbox, so we're bumping these up to two slots each. Winter Shroud going from 1 to 2, and Cryoclasm going from 1 to 2. Totally okay with that. That's fine. Shade Binder in a good spot. Glacial Harvest felt like a hard choice to make over Ice Flare, Bleak Watcher, and Frost Pulse. A portion of that friction comes from Glacial Harvest lengthy cooldown after activation, reducing it by 33%. Totally on board with this as well. You know, again, Stasis is, you know, it's mostly okay. I feel like it's more the light subclasses being too high up than it is Stasis being too low down. But you know, it could bring the slightest bump up. The slightest bump up. Whisper of Rending now provides bonus damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets for all primary ammo weapons rather than just kinetic primary ammo weapons. I think this is a really good quality of life change, if anything. So yeah, although it does reduce some of that emphasis on like needing a kinetic primary. I know there's been a lot of discussion recently about like kinetic weapons just kind of being like, why do what do we need this? Do we need this anymore? But either way, I think this is totally fine change, quality of life change. So yeah. Overall, nothing is like really blowing my mind here. Nothing is terribly surprising. Like, everyone knows Arc Warlocks are not that great in endgame PvE. Everyone knows that Restoration is really strong. So none of these are really taking me by massive surprise whatsoever. I'm actually a little surprised, though, that there was basically no mention of resilience whatsoever. Not even like a, we think it's fine. Like, let's just search the word resilience. Yeah, this is the only instance of the word resilience being mentioned. So, nothing, no mention of resilience whatsoever. So I did find that a little bit interesting, but otherwise, I'm not too baffled by anything here. I think most of this makes sense, if not pretty much all of it. And yeah. New dungeons coming out December 9th, 9 a.m. Daylight savings is over, right? We fell back, so it's over. So resets at 9 a.m. PDT now. I think that's about it. I think those are the two TWABs that I wanted to discuss. Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. How long was that? 36 minutes. My bad.